For some time now, and it has come to fruition, the Minnesota Vikings are not actively considering Aaron Rodgers as a possible addition, leaving J.J. McCarthy atop the quarterback chart and leaving Rodgers, one would assume, choosing between the Steelers and the Giants. This will be of disappointment to Dominique Foxworth. I still want to play you what he said on his show the other day because I agree with it. This is what Neek said he thinks Rodgers should have been hoping for.
If I'm Aaron Rodgers, I would go play for the Vikings for free. I would league minimum, sign me up. The reason why I come to this opinion is, and it's easy for me to say that he don't need no more money, but I think that's what's more valuable to him right now, or what should be in my mind, is rewriting the end of his career. I think it would really benefit him to go somewhere else and kind of make over his image. It's risk there, but I think that it's the best situation to do it.
Okay, so that's an interesting take, obviously. And this morning when we played that soundbite early, you said something to the effect of, I really don't think Aaron Rodgers cares what people think of him. And I feel like J-Mac, you co-signed that. And what I'm about to say, I don't mean disrespectfully, I mean it respectfully. I don't know of anyone in sports who I think is more concerned with what people say about him right now than Aaron Rodgers is. He seems to hear everything that gets said about him, and he seems to respond all the time. To wit, watch him on the Pat McAfee show. He seems to be settling scores on that show every single week. Yeah. One week it's Ryan Clark, one week it's Jimmy Kimmel, one week it's this person, it's that person. I feel like he's acutely aware of the things that people say about him and the way he is perceived. Now, I think that is a trait he shares with a lot of the all-time greats. Perhaps they use it as fuel. Michael Jordan, I mean, if you watch The Last Dance, Michael Jordan would get mad at anybody for anything. So I don't mean that negatively, but I think Aaron Rodgers is extremely conscious of the things that people are saying about him, and thus I do think that how he goes out and what his legacy is or whatever it is, I do think that is of concern to him.
Yeah, I get your point, because he does seem to be very sensitive about, or rather, let's just say he's very willing to go ahead and attack those or kind of respond to those that he feels are in opposition to whatever he feels, you know, about certain things, both on the field and off the field, obviously. Look, I just think for him right now, if legacy is something that is important to him and how people perceive him as far as being a football player, as far as just being someone who's in the public eye, I think, again, I'm going to say this for about the 50th time. He needs a place like Pittsburgh where he can just play football. Mm-hmm. And the story is not about any of your off-field exploits, what show you're on, what your stance is on anything. No one cares. All they care about there is, can you help this football team? It's a blue-collar town. It's a blue-collar organization, a family-run organization. Just play the game. I think that's what he needs. If he wants to do something to really help his image, I think that's the kind of team he needs to get to.
I think when you talk about responding to some of those things, I think that's his way of having fun, in a sense of a lot of the things he's responding to aren't whether Aaron Rodgers is a top 5 quarterback or his MVPs or his things on the field. It's more about perception of who he is off the field. And I think it has a lot to do with, for Rodgers, you're sitting there and you're listening to people talk about you in a manner in which they don't personally know you and they're forming opinions. So I think he feels it's necessary for him to respond to those things, because there are people that may actually know him that hear these things and say, well, that's not who Aaron is. Like, I've never known the person to be that way. I think when it comes to the football side of it, Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks ever played his game. And to look and see that he's only been to 1 Super Bowl, obviously he's won it, but I think that side of it for him is, what's the situation that gives me the best chance to leave my mark on this game the last way of doing it at the highest possible level I can. And as we get older and our skill set diminishes, having the best team around you provides that for him.
And I think right now that team is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I want y'all to understand this about Aaron Rodgers. Look at the head coaches that he's had in his career. Mike McCarthy, 2 years when Aaron Rodgers became the starter. Matt LaFleur, first-year head coach. Robert Saleh, 2 years at the New York Jets before Aaron Rodgers got there. Mm-hmm. You go to the Pittsburgh Steelers, you have that dominant presence in Mike Tomlin, someone who is embedded as a head coach, something that Aaron Rodgers has never had in his career.
And we know that they have this little wink and a nod kind of long-standing good relationship, or at least mutual respect, which is good. Look, I don't know Aaron well. I've met him. if you watched Enigma, he created a 3-episode documentary about his life. You can know him. You can know what he thinks about everything if you watch that. And one of the things he said that continues to stay with me, he actively mentions John Elway winning the Super Bowl in his final game.
Right.
And we know that Aaron is a guy who sort of like tries to envision things and then make them, what's the word I'm looking for? Like make it manifest.
Yeah.
I think that's how he sees himself going out, Lewis. I think that is important to him.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? Maybe it is. I mean, that's look. Obviously, he kind of really stokes a lot of conversation surrounding like these kinds of things. Like, what exactly is important to him? How does he envision his career ending? What would be, presumably important to him at the end of his career? I would hope. Let's just put it this way. Since I haven't asked him this question. I would hope that here late in his career, over the next 2 years, he just wants to play ball and go out playing the game at as high of a level as he possibly can without a whole lot of other BS surrounding him and a whole lot of other controversy surrounding him. He needs to be in a place that's just going to that everything that surrounds that organization is just going to put a cocoon around him and protect him to where he can just concentrate on the game and he doesn't get distracted with other stuff. That's Pittsburgh.
Has to be a Super Bowl. Why else would he still be playing? There's no other accolade or stat. Like, it has to be a Super Bowl.
I get that part of it. What you just said could also create an entirely other fascinating conversation because I don't think he has to be protected. I think he seeks that stuff out, right?
But he
wants to be in the middle of those conversations, whether we like it or not.
Opinion
but I don't understand, like that this doesn't make sense.
Unfortunately, this came up as they're telling me we have 8 seconds left in the show. So let me mention, ESPN has confirmed the Minnesota Vikings are not actively considering Rodgers as a possible addition, leaving J.J. McCarthy atop the quarterback depth chart. There are a lot of different ways to slice up the implications of this story or the ramifications of this story. We know that he has a standing offer from the Steelers. We know that he has a standing offer from the Giants. We assume, and we all know what happens sometimes when you assume, that the reason he has been hesitant to make up his mind on those is that he has been holding out hope that the Vikings would be an option. According to the reporting, the Vikings are not an option. There's a lot of questions that come to my mind. Lewis, the first is this the right decision for Minnesota?
Yeah, I believe it is. Look, I think the quarterback room makeup is critical to J.J. McCarthy's development. You need someone who's not threatening him, especially if, all of this is contingent upon his rehab being on track. Clearly it is. Clearly they feel as though he's going to be ready to go once September rolls around. Now, back to the makeup as far as the quarterback room is concerned. J.J. McCarthy at this point in time needs all the support that he can get. He needs a backup quarterback who's going to be sitting there trying to help him become a pro, not trying to help supplant him and get him out.